Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Weekly Real Estate Tips with Torie. I am Torie Ellens, and this week I was asked to do a home buying seminar, and of course, this was done virtually. So what I'd like to show you is the commonly asked questions and the questions I addressed during that home buying seminar. So below is just a couple of clips put together of the questions I was asked and how I answered them.
First, we have Torie Ellens. She's a realtor and head of the Ellens team based in, I believe, Phoenix, or is it Scottsdale?
It's the whole Phoenix market, the Valley. So all the cities surrounding Phoenix as well.
Great. So first, I thought it would be good to start off with just talking about your career paths and how you all got involved in real estate. One of the things I think is really cool about the real estate industry is that people don't always start off in that. It's not a linear career path where they say, it's something they study in college and then get a degree and then move into the career. Sometimes you start somewhere else and end up in real estate. So I'd love to hear from you first, Torie, on your path toward your career in real estate.
Okay, great. So I started 19 years ago, a little over 19 years ago. For me, it was more of it's been my career for most of my adult life. I was in my early 20s when I started. And for me, I was at a place where I was really contemplating what I had passions, about, like what I was very passionate about. And I was considering going into law. And I had a good friend of mine who was in real estate, was a bit older and said, you'd be amazing in real estate. And I went, why do you think that? And he pointed out all of the reasons. And I thought, well, there's a lot of legal aspect to real estate, right? And that's where the legal aspects in the contract that can help your clients out more than just being a door opener. So for me, it intrigued me. I got my license quickly, and much like everything I do in my life, it was full force from the beginning. I don't wait long to make things happen, and ran a successful real estate company in the Tucson market for many years, and then moved up to the Phoenix area just over 9 years ago. And I consistently run in the top 1% here in the Valley. Like I said, with Phoenix, you've got many towns that are all make up the Valley here. So Scottsdale, Peoria, Phoenix, Glendale, Mesa, Tempe, Cave Creek, Carefree, all of those cities plus some more that we serve. And I started this team, did it solo for a while here just to get everything going strong, and then started this team again just over 2.5 years ago. And we have been rolling very, very strong. So that's how I got into it. It's definitely a passion of mine. I wake up every day excited to be able to help clients. And I think that's something with real estate. You have to love it because it is 7 days a week all the time. And if it's not something you're passionate about, it can become a job or a chore. But I absolutely love what we do.
Excellent. Thank you. Another question about your careers that I'd like to hear from each of you on is what's something that excites you about your career, and another thing that challenges you? Maybe it's the same thing. Torie, we can go ahead and start with you.
For me, I think, I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's literally every aspect of taking somebody that maybe you didn't know. I get a lot of referral business as well, but then we also do a lot of online lead gen, and taking somebody you didn't know and being able to help them understand the process that they're about to go through. There's a lot of important steps in buying or selling a home. So walking them through that without making them feel like you're overwhelming them, helping them feel educated. I'm big on data and information. So I love being that resource for people where it's not just I'm selling them a house. It's kind of an ongoing joke. People will say to my husband, oh, your wife sells a lot of real estate. And he's like, oh, she's terrible at selling houses. She's really good at finding the right house, right? So it's not about selling a house to someone. It's about listening to them, their needs, their wants, and then matching up those properties that fit that. And I believe strongly in like really carving out that right property for people and truly just listening to them. I think so many times as I've trained agents over the years, they forget to listen. You know, they hear the basics. How many bedrooms? How many baths? Well, listen, my 13-year-old could ask that question. What's the lifestyle you want? And when you deal with like relo or second home purchases, that's huge. You've got to know what their lifestyle that they're looking for, because many of them don't know the area that they want. So I love being able to match that up. And there's nothing better than the feel when you hand somebody their keys and they get tears in their eyes and they said, I never thought I'd be able to own a home. It's really that moment, right, that really makes all of the challenging moments. I think in the background, those of us who do real estate at a decent level, we're firefighters. Whether you know that or not, we don't have the suits and the flames that we deal with. It's the invisible flames that we fight on a daily basis, where it's like, somebody is relying on me to get this to happen. And I've got to fix this problem. Otherwise, they will not be able to get into their home. So it's constantly the firefighting that can be challenging, but it's coming up with ways to deal with those challenges and thinking outside the box. And at the end of the day, getting the buyer and seller to that place that everybody's happy and that transaction closes. And I always tell my clients, I want you to feel like you sat down and watched a movie. You didn't see the production behind the scenes and the cuts and the takes and the headaches and the stresses. You just sat down and watched this lovely movie. I want you to feel like you watched a lovely movie, but it was you buying your home that we helped get there.
That's awesome. What goes into figuring out what home is best for you? I imagine there's some prioritization that people need to do. How do they kind of move forward with establishing what their priorities are and when they're looking for a home?
So I think the first thing I always ask people, especially if they're, here locally or if they're relocating, is, do you need to commute to a job, right? And that's changing lately because we have a lot of people that are able to work from home more so now than ever. But is there a commute we need to worry about on a daily basis? And in Phoenix, if you're, in certain parts of town, getting to their job can be hour plus of traffic. So we first want to determine that, because, again, if they already don't know the areas that they love, we want to figure out if they're going to have to commute, how close do they want to be? What are they comfortable with on the commute? And then after that, like I said, it's talking about the lifestyle that they want to live, right? Like if they want to live where there's parks and nearby where they can walk with the kids or go on the sidewalks and get to a park or get to things that they do outside, we want to know that so we can match up communities to that as well. And then a lot of it goes into, if they have a whole laundry list of criteria that they're looking for example, if somebody said, I wanted, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home with a pool, over 3,000 square foot, but I want it for $350,000 in Scottsdale, Arizona, I'm going to say, okay, what's more important? Is our needs list more important, or is our budget, right? Because let's talk about what's real. I like to sit them down and show them inventory as we're building their search. And so we start with their 100% wish list and show them how many properties generate in there. And then we narrow down from there. But I think that, finding out, again, if what the commute's going to be for them, if that's what they're comfortable with, and then targeting in their needs, their wish, and definitely lifestyle.
Torie, from your perspective in Arizona, what does that look like? What are some of the factors that go into determining the price of the home or the list price in Arizona?
So we are in a short supply market as well right now. Typically, we like to see 3 months supply of inventory. We're running anywhere from 1.6 months to 1.8 months over the last several months. So we're almost in half of what we want to see for inventory. That definitely plays into the factor, right? You have to price a property according to what the market is. Right now, I'd say we're very much in a seller's market. When we do our comparables, I'm going to use the equivalent of an appraiser. So we're going to look at the last 6 months, what comparable properties have sold for within a 20% square footage variance and like property. And then we will come up with the comparables and then take our subject property and price it accordingly. Again, right now we're able to push market value by a bit. We are seeing in some of the price ranges, we're seeing, where you're going to price under a little bit and go for multiple offers. Over the past, let's say 10 offers this week that we were either the listing agent on or submitted, we had anywhere from 13, 17, 54, 10, things like that offers. So when we're listing a property, I'm going to take into account, are we under a certain price point for the area? And do I expect to get multiples? And then, look at the comps and we price it accordingly.
Okay. So this question could be for any of you. I know you're all very well versed in marketing and social media, but let's say someone is looking and kind of starting their search. What are some resources that they should lean toward, or is Instagram a good place? Are there various websites you'd recommend, or should they immediately reach out and establish a relationship with a realtor? Kind of, how do people find these properties? Torie, if we can start with you.
So I think the general thought for a lot of people is they go online and they go to sites like Zillow or realtor.com or all these other sites. And the challenge with going to, let's take Zillow, for instance, I think that they've done so much marketing. So they're kind of first of mind for a lot of people. The challenge with going to a site like that is you have to remember that it's a marketing platform. Zillow is not the multiple listing service for different states. They are simply a company that has done a very good job at marketing themselves and what they offer. And what they're going to do is when you click that get more information, I think probably 90% of the people I talk to that were premier agents for Zillow, so I get a lot of Zillow incoming calls, is they say, oh, we thought you were the listing agent. So when somebody clicks that link, they think, oh, I'm going to go over to the listing agent. I'm going to get information about the house. But really what you're going to do is you're going to go for the way Zillow works in some markets, you're going to go to an agent who's paid X amount for that zip code and they're in the top 3, or like in our market now, we're in their flex program. Either way, you're going to an agent that Zillow is going to make money on connecting you to. And so they don't have to be accurate. They run about, in our market, 25 to 30% accurate only. So many times people are clicking on properties they think are available and they're not. I would highly recommend, we have our own app. We have our own website and we draw traffic to that. So if you're just going to go Google, I would say Google top agents in the market that you're looking in and go to their websites. Find somebody that you are going to connect with, that you feel comfortable is going to work for you, fight for you, take care of you, and then go from there. So, finding top agents in the market. If somebody's doing a lot of business, they know the market, right? And the average agent here sells 2.6 homes a year. And I always tell my clients, if you went to your job 2.6 times a year, how good are you going to be at that? So you don't want somebody that is just doing a little bit of real estate, not as a hobby or as a part-time. You want somebody that does this every day, that's a market expert, that's in the market daily and can educate you on the data and the facts to help you make the best decision. And I think if you go to their, the agents' websites, we all have multiple websites typically. And we recently, this year in January, created an app too. So I think having accurate data is imperative.
Yeah, I can see how one of those websites, such as Zillow, but there are many others, could kind of lack the human element and that connection that you all have spoken to.
So we have a question here. I have my agent license, but still work full-time in another industry. What are your thoughts about starting part-time in real estate versus going all in? Who laughed?
Who wants to take that? Torie?
I think that what you have to understand about real estate, I think when people say I'm going to get my license, so many people think this is just about seeing pretty homes. They really do not understand that the true part of this process that impacts the buyer the most starts with you knowing the market incredibly well, knowing the advice to give them on the numbers and again the data and the market, and then also being able to get them from contract to close, which is so much more than people realize. There's so much behind the scenes. And I think as a part-time agent, the average client is going to want to look when they're off work. Right. And again, that has changed a little bit with people being able to work from home, but that's nights, weekends, and sometimes all hours of the day, depending on the buyer. I just truly do not believe that a part-time agent can give the level of service that a full-time agent can.
Do we have any advice on purchasing a second home for investment purposes and also experience renting out a home, either long-term or through companies like Airbnb? Also, what to look for in a fixer home? Any major red flags to keep an eye out for?
I work a lot with investors, and I'm happy to answer that. We have a very strong short-term rental market. So VRBO, Airbnb, we have cities like Scottsdale, Cave Creek, and Carefree, all that perform incredibly well. For instance, in our season, which is late October, but definitely November through April, it is common to see even a 2-bedroom condo, doesn't even have to be a single family resident, rent out for anywhere from $350 to $550 a night, depending on the city it's in. So when you're looking for a rental, I think you need to first determine if you're trying to do a short-term rental or if you're trying to do a long-term rental. And each of those properties are going to bring different values and different returns. So working with someone who works with both type of investment properties, and then being able to run the numbers for you on, you know, the units and the cities that you're looking in when you're working with short-term rentals. Also understanding that those have their own set of challenges. Whereas with a long-term rental, you have somebody that's going to property manage that. So they get the calls in the middle of the night, you know, when there's issues. With the short-term rentals, you're wanting to have somebody still manage it, but most of my clients that own short-term rentals in the area can effectively manage them with just the help of like the cleaners and the landscapers. And again, depending on how much you need to do to the property, how much it requires for maintenance. As far as flips, that I think you really need to do your research on which market is hot for flips. For instance, in the Phoenix market, we are saturated with flip investors. So I'll only work with a limited number of investors at one time. And many of them, I said, listen, guys, shift to a long-term hold on these properties, shift them to rentals for now, buy more rental properties, whether that was short-term rental or long-term rental, buy that right now, hold off on the flips, because the margins here in our market went from maybe being 50, 60, 70 plus $1,000 on a flip to you're maybe talking 15 to 30 on an average flip with the market saturation that we have.
So we have, what kinds of changes in housing costs and affordability are you seeing in your respective communities? What kinds of impact on pricing are you expecting from COVID?
I've answered that for Phoenix.
Right.
We're in an increasing market with short supply. We've seen our pricing going up. Obviously, the projections, again, you know, when you're relying on data, you have to rely on future predictions, different graphs, National Association of Realtors, Cromford Report. You know, projections are going to be different based on who you pull. But I know consistently for the Phoenix area, all the platforms that we look through, which is well over like 8 of them, all of them are showing increases in our market, both for 2020, 2021, and the few that are available for 2022 are also showing increase. You also have to remember for Phoenix, though, we have over 225 people a day moving here. So that's kind of, you know, too, you have to consider the market you're moving to.
Great, thank you. As a first-time home buyer, should I consider paying a lower down payment to afford a bigger home for investing, or match the 20% down payment and secure a home to live in first?
So I don't know if you guys in your markets, it seems like your markets are probably a little bit higher priced than Phoenix. I know we've still got, like, in the course of our escrows last week alone, I had one that closed at 125,000 and one that closed close to $1 million. So we run the gamut. When I work with clients, I don't see a price tag. I just see the client and then what are their needs and how can we match it. I can tell you that as a first-time buyer, the misconception that I run across a lot here in this market, where we have, you know, a lot lower pricing and a lot more affordability on that lower end of the scale, the biggest misconception is they think they need a lot of money out of pocket. And I would say, when you ask about the impact on COVID, I match up with lenders that are as knowledgeable about their field as I am about real estate. And when the COVID thing happened, a lot of our lenders lost many programs, but our 2 strongest lenders have most of their programs back. And so there are programs out there for first-time buyers in our market, I'm not saying other markets, that are down payment assistance programs that will give them the money they need, not only for down payment, but towards closing costs as well. And then each of those programs carries like restrictions. You have to hold it for 24 months, different restrictions with those programs. So when you're talking about buying, and we've all said the best start is to talk to a real estate expert who's going to put you in touch with a trusted lender. Talk, to that lender about your financial situation, because much like we as the experts are going to match you up to a property, that lender is going to match you up to the right fit for the financial platform for you to buy. And again, it's not always an FHA or a VA or a 20% down. There's so many programs out there, and knowing that the lender is the expert on that, they're going to assess your personal financial situation and figure out what is the best fit for you.
I have a question about someone who wants to find a realtor that specializes in short sales. Any advice with that?
It's not a short process, first and foremost. I think that so many people hear short sales and they're like, oh, that means it's going to be short, like the process is short. What's short is the deficit of what's owed to the bank. So the seller owns a home, and the money that they owe the bank is going to be short the amount to pay that bank in full. So we're selling that property short of what they owe, and you have to have bank approval. So that process can be 3 to 6 months sometimes, just depending on, the bank and how many, if you have 2 loans on it, do you have 1 loan? So I think when you start looking at short sale properties, I think it's imperative to have an agent that can explain that process to you, what that looks like. If it does take, 4 to 6 months, do you have that time to wait for that property? And then also understanding that you can submit an offer. The seller, if they still have the ability, signs for it, then the bank doesn't necessarily have to agree with that. So the seller is just step one. It's really the ultimate approval comes from the bank. And if you have 2 mortgages on that, both banks have to agree. It's usually the second mortgage that takes the biggest hit. So getting them to agree to that is also part of that process.
Let's see. If you're not living in the current city, but you're looking to buy there, what things should you consider to assess if it's a good time to buy and that the home won't depreciate in value significantly in a few years?
If we all had a crystal ball as agents, we would be so wealthy. But I think looking to the future, you have to look at the current and the past to be able to answer that. So being able to say what the market has done over the past so many years. So for instance, in Arizona, we're not a bubble market. Typically we're not going to get massive amounts of increase and then pop, right? We're more of a slow and steady. Historically in Arizona, 3 to 5% return year over year is what we've seen. But again, being able to show the data for the last couple of years and in specific to the neighborhoods that they're looking in, and then show them what's currently happening and what's projected to happen. But those projections are based off of data, not just a guess. If any agent says, well, I guess, or my opinion is, that's great, but opinions are nothing to place money on. An opinion is just that. Ask them for the facts and the data, because once you have that, you can at least make an educated decision.
I hope you enjoyed that. I also know that you may have specific questions dealing with your situation, and I'm happy to answer your questions. You can follow me on all of my social platforms and reach out there, or you can call me directly at 602-288-8881. And until next week, I hope you have an amazing week.